All right, so you know how our phones can recognize our faces in photos, right?
Right.
Or how self-driving cars can, like, see a stop sign.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of amazing that computers can even understand images at all, don't you think?
It really
It
is.
all comes down to something called convolutional neural networks. CNNs,
CNNs.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they can be, well, it can be pretty complex to wrap your head around.
Absolutely.
But today we're going to break it all down.
Make it easy.
Make it easy, yeah.
Yeah.
So that anyone listening can get a good grasp of how these things actually work.
Exactly.
Basically, we want to understand the basics of how computers can actually see images.
Yeah.
So let's start with something simple.
Okay.
Like when we look at a picture,
Okay.
for example, let's say a picture of a cat.
All right.
We instantly see it as a cat.
Right.
Right? We see the fur, the eyes, the whiskers, everything.
Yeah.
But for a computer, it's not that straightforward.
Not at all.
Like, how does a computer even begin to process that information?
Well, a computer actually sees an image as a bunch of numbers, basically.
Numbers?
Yeah, like a giant grid of numbers representing the color of each tiny dot, or pixel.
So, like, each pixel has a number.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And those numbers tell the computer what color that pixel should be.
Okay, but how does it go from just a bunch of numbers
Right.
to, recognizing a cat?
Yeah, so that's where the CNN comes in.
Okay.
It uses a process called convolution, which basically means it looks at the image through a small window.
Like a tiny magnifying glass.
Kind of, yeah.
And it scans the entire image.
Exactly. It goes piece by piece.
Oh, so it doesn't, like, see the whole thing at once?
No, it breaks it down into smaller chunks.
Interesting.
And within each of those little windows, it applies what are called filters.
Filter.
Or sometimes they're called kernels.
Okay.
But basically, they're like pattern detectors.
So they're looking for certain patterns in those little windows.
Exactly. And the really cool thing is that the first filters, they're looking for really basic things.
Like what?
Like edges, where there's a sudden change in color.
Oh,
Or maybe changes in brightness.
I see.
And as the information moves through more layers of the CNN,
Yeah.
it starts to recognize more complex stuff.
Like it builds on those basic patterns.
Exactly. So maybe a bunch of edges together form a corner.
Okay.
Or a few curves might make a circle.
So it's like from simple shapes to more complex shapes.
Exactly. And eventually to recognizing whole objects.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Now, I've heard about this thing called pooling.
Right.
What exactly is that?
So pooling is kind of like simplifying the information.
Okay.
Imagine you've read a really long book.
Yeah.
And you want to remember the key points.
Right.
You might summarize it.
Exactly.
Pooling is similar. It reduces the amount of data while keeping the important information.
Oh, I see.
Makes the whole process more efficient.
So it's like shrinking the image but keeping the key details.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So after all this filtering and pooling,
Right.
how does the computer actually make a decision?
Well, that's where the fully connected layer comes in.
Okay.
It's the last step. It
Yeah.
takes all the features that the CNN has found.
Like all the shapes and textures and edges?
Exactly. And it puts them all together to make a final decision.
Like, okay, this is definitely a cat.
Right. Or there's a 90% chance this is a car.
So it's like the final verdict.
Yeah, you could say that.
That's really cool.
It is. And the amazing thing is, this isn't just some theory.
Right.
We see CNNs all the time in our everyday life.
Yeah, like with facial recognition.
Exactly. When you unlock your phone with your face, that's a CNN working.
Oh, wow.
And self-driving cars use them to identify objects on the road.
Makes sense.
Even medical imaging, doctors use CNNs to detect diseases in scans.
So they're really everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's fascinating how they break down an image into these simple features
Right.
and then build it back up to recognize complex objects.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful technology.
Definitely makes you think about what else AI could be capable of in the future.
Absolutely. The possibilities are endless.
Well, thanks for breaking down all of that.
No problem.
It's been a really insightful deep dive.
Glad you enjoyed it.
That's it for this week. We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.